Greetings, all. It's a beautiful morning here in Hawaii, but we're in for flash flood watches. I can see some menacing clouds out here on the horizon coming this way, so we may get a lot of rain. If I can get this video done, I'm going to go prune the shrubs in the front of my yard. Timing is everything, right? And that's what today's video is about how important it is to have proper timing. And this would be dealing with insect pests, dealing with your weeds, dealing with crops, and also dealing with issues in your personal life and exposing the world to your ideas. Timing is everything. In the media, it's referred to as a hook. Well, let's say that there was a big media release about Tesla EVs, for instance, right? Well, because that media release about Tesla was out there, even I could probably put something into the wire service and about EVs and possibly come up with it going into publication because there is a hook at that moment. Timing is everything. Yes, you can move the world with a fingertip when you got it right. Now, when I was a younger man, before I spent enough time on Earth watching to see what happens over and over and over and over again with my actions and observations, when I was a younger man, timing meant it's my time. It's time to do something. It's time now. I would be confronted with some sort of situation that if I had caught it at the right moment, if I had understood that there are aperture moments in almost everything that happens where a small key unlocks the problem, if I had understood that, I probably wouldn't have beat my head against the wall and developed such a cynical attitude about life. It took me a while. But as you begin to watch, you see cycles. Things happen in cycles. And every cycle has a weak link in its chain. There's always a spot in every cycle where if you address something, you may find that you can get extraordinary results. An example, whiteflies. A lot of people in the U.S., whether we're here in Hawaii or out there in the mainland, you got trouble with whiteflies. Worldwide, you probably got trouble with whiteflies. Well, they're a real bugaboo. As a nurseryman, helping people with their problems, that was one of the hard ones, man. Oh, man, how do you get rid of whiteflies? Well, timing is everything. Okay, yes. The whitefly eggs during warm weather hatch in 11-day cycles. And so your applications of whatever you're using as an insecticide control have to occur within 11-day cycles because the eggs are not susceptible to anything. Only the juveniles and the adults, but the adults fly, and so you really can't catch them without a trap. Okay, so what you do is you put up yellow card sticky traps to catch the adults, and then you spray the underside of the foliage with something like neem or horticultural oil every 11 days. And I had a problem with the Mexican giant whitefly moving in on my citrus in California. It was a new bug. We didn't have it previously. And it appears that most of the things that ate the whitefly didn't like it. It has a really sticky, cottony wax. Anything that gets near it gets stuck in the stuff. One spring, as the cycle began, they wait for warm weather to begin to breed, lay eggs, and start the cycle for the year. Well, I went out to the trees and I hit them apparently at the exact moment that they were getting ready to wake up and have sex and lay eggs for spring. What happened is completely devastated the population. It was at that one moment where it was going to go ahead and replace its lost numbers from the winter, and instead it got hit with an insecticide that knocked it flat. And I didn't have any more trouble the rest of the year. One application that year took care of the problem. Timing. In California, I remember having problems with customers and two specific weeds. There are two weeds in the Bay Area that are really a bugger. One of them is the Bermuda grass, okay, a summer-growing, warm season creeping grass. And the other one is the buttercup oxalis or tuberous oxalis. It's that sour grass flower, the yellow blossoms in the Bay Area with a clover-looking plant. It's in the shamrock family. Well, that's a cool season weed. And so if you have a terrible case of oxalis, but you want to go after it in the summer, you can't. The only way you can go after that plant in summer is if you went through the yard with a fine-tooth comb, dug up every root, and pulled it out by hand, which is nuts. You don't want to do that. So you have to address the oxalis in the fall when its cycle begins. Wintertime isn't real good for using herbicides. They don't work very well in cold weather. But if you were to do that with this plant, you would be using like 2,4-D. Roundup would not be the solution for this. It's a broadleaf. And it's really better that you put an impervious mulch, like a sheet of plastic, over the top of it, or you just simply keep cultivating it throughout the entire winter with fallow cultivation, it's called. And by spring, most of it will have starved itself to death if you don't let it come up and get green. Yeah, any longer than it takes to see it and go, there you are, kid, I got you. You can actually starve the stuff right out. The reverse is true with Bermuda grass. I had so many people swear, it's impossible, you can't get it, the stuff digs itself down 6 feet in the ground and blah, blah, blah. Oh, the negativity over dealing with that one particular weed. The wind is picking up. Yeah, we're getting a little wind here. Anyway, it's the same with that one. It's a warm season plant. And so if you start at the beginning of the warm season, say like in April, when you get a good spring coming on in the Bay Area, if you begin to address it at that time, now you can use, again, herbicides. Roundup would work on that one. I prefer impervious mulches or fallow cultivation, and I have, between May and July, completely exterminated an entire bed of that grass because it wants to grow in warm weather, and if it can't grow in warm weather because you're pounding on it, then it exhausts all the stored energy it has in the rhizomes under the ground, and the whole darn thing drops dead. That easy, but it's all about timing, because if you start on it in October, forget it. The only thing you can do with it is, again, dig up all the roots and pull them out by hand. And I have done this. Okay, yeah, small areas down a planting row. I've done this. Yeah, so it's all about timing. Timing is the important. The mouse cycle. Yeah, you get rodent cycles. Generally, in most of the mainland U.S., you'll probably find that especially if you live in the country and you can observe relatively undisturbed ecologies, you'll notice that there's a relationship cycle between predator and prey with things like hawks, owls, eagles, foxes, coyotes, and then again, bobcats and mice. Or rats. Okay, so the rodents are food for the other critters. And so as the rodent population begins to build up, the population of things that eat rodents begins to build up against that curve. Well, eventually the population of rodents hits a peak. They begin to die off due to overpopulation, and the hawks are having a field day, and the foxes are getting fat and so on. Anyway, eventually the rodent population will decline. So then following it, you also notice your predators will also sort of go into decline. And this thing happens the Wisconsin farmers used to claim it was a 14-year cycle, 7 years up, 7 years down, like that, predator and prey. I don't know whether they got the timing interval right, but I know they have the cycle right. Yes, I've observed it myself. It can get incredible. Oh, the amount of mice. Oh, man, I've had plagues of mice go ahead and den up under my pine tree plantings when I was putting in trees years ago. And in one winter, because they got denned up under the snow around my baby pines. They ate 1,500 pine trees and then dropped dead due to disease, overpopulation. Yeah, it's horrible. Well, again, it's timing with the mouse cycle. Fall is always the time when the rodents are looking for warmer places to hide, more food, and so forth. And that's when they really will start to come into your house. Yeah, as things begin to cool down. The same goes with things like black flies. You know, if you got loose shingles, you end up with flies accumulating under shingles. And all again, it's in fall. In fall, everything streams for warmth and shelter. And so if you're going to approach a mouse cycle, for instance, you really want to have everything ready with the traps and the peanut butter and the mouse bait and the cats and whatever else you're planning to do, usually right around September, October sometime, because if you catch the cycle at that point, they won't move into your kitchen and start breeding, because otherwise you're going to end up with hundreds and hundreds of mice inside the house during the winter. Yeah. So there I have offered you a few ideas that are associated to insect pests or associated to rodent pests and so on, weeds. But the same approach, timing matters. It's important in just about anything else you do in your life. Yeah, for real. I spent a lot of my time as a youth on a soapbox. You got to treat the planet better. You got to stop spraying DDT. I don't know. Okay, that kind of stuff. Well, it's people don't like being moralized much anyway, and I wasted a lot of air, a lot of my breath in that approach, because I did not fully realize when I was younger that when you hit the right aperture moment in time, one little finger can push a mountain. But unfortunately, you really never know when those moments are actually coming. You just sort of got to anticipate them, because they don't announce themselves really unless you're really astute. But an example, while I was in the nursery business working for partners, I always railed against the fact that we were selling organophosphate insecticides. They were pretty much all developed during World War II as nerve agents for troops. They're pretty much all of them related to DDT. Not good. And I have long, I would sell organic solutions whenever anybody didn't ask me specifically for an organophosphate. You ask me for malathion, I give it to you. That's what you want. But if you ask me to help you with your problem with aphids, I'll come up with another approach for you that's safer, more environmentally friendly, and so on. And by the way, in the nursery, I can make a lot more money. Yes. Yeah, because the chemical approaches are a hammer. Boom! It's like nuking things. Let's turn them into sand, and it doesn't often always work. But yeah, it's just a big heavy-handed thing. When you're using organic controls, they're more sophisticated. You have to worry about, the cycles of when the eggs are hatching, and you might be using lures. You could be using also traps. You might be using beneficial nematodes in the soil. You might be using neem in the tree, or some such thing. So it will become a more complicated situation with a lighter impact, and usually for the nursery, better profits. I did prove that to my bosses, but nevertheless, they don't like being proven wrong. That's for sure. But there came time, little by little over the years, I believe DDT was the first organophosphate to get banned over the eggs of our bald eagle getting thin and cracking because of the chemical and so on. Well, slowly, these products have been coming off the market. They've been getting replaced mostly with neonicotinoids, that is synthetic nicotine molecules, and synthetic pyrethroids, chemically derived toxins that are similar to the ones we get from a pyrethrin daisy. Okay. Anyway, there are alternatives, and they have been getting replaced, but things are slow. You know how that is, man. People get used to stuff. Well, as this turnover was happening, a product at the time called diazinon, by its trade name, was being banned. It was going to reach a point, it was getting grandfathered that I don't know, we had 12 months or something on this order to sell out everything we had on the shelf and get rid of it. Otherwise, we had to turn it over as toxic to a landfill or something, or an incinerator. So I was in a meeting with the partners at the main office, and they're talking about this situation, how some of these major chemicals that they were selling, it's an all-purpose diazinon. It kills just about anything. That it's going to go away. How should they deal with this? And they're going, well, there's going to be a run on the stuff. People are going to want it, to stock up on the last bit. And so we should probably go out and buy up as many pallets of this as we can find, put it in the warehouse to be able to, sell it off on the grandfather end of the chemical. Well, it just so happened that year, let's see, Artie Schwarzenegger was governor in California. I remember that guy. Good sci-fi movies. And anyway, they had given our nursery chain, Navale's Nursery, a Clean Water Award. Now, I'm not exactly sure what we did to get this, but we were given one by the governor. Yeah, they gave it right to us there. Well, as my bosses are discussing whether they should stockpile the last bit of toxic chemicals to sell to people, I brought up to them that with the governor having given the nursery operation a Clean Water Award, that it sort of flies in the face. It's counterproductive to begin stockpiling toxic chemicals that are a serious problem in our wastewater treatment. Yeah, that's really one of the reasons it's going away. It gets in the wastewater, gets all in all the lawns and stuff, runs off. Well, I had been trying to get rid of that chemical in those stores for years, or at least trying to get us to not focus on it and to focus on other things. I really hadn't gotten anywhere until that moment. One moment in time, man. I turned heads. Everybody looked at me and they said, oh, the Clean Water Award. Oh. They didn't do it. They did not buy pallets. We sold off whatever we had on the shelves, got it out of the stores, and made the transition to, other materials. Whether neonicotinoids are better or worse is another story. Biggest problem with a lot of them is they have tricked them out so they are systemic and time release. So if you dump them at the bottom of your tree, they'll make your tree toxic for the next 12 months. Well, if it's got flowers on it, the bees come by. In the meantime, there are problems. There are issues. We tend to think that the colony decline disorder in bees globally is because of the rise in the use of neonicotinoids in agriculture. Anywho, so there's just a little bit about catching it at the right moment. I'm telling you, you grab things just exactly at the right second, and you will end up grabbing a tiger by the tail quite often, or at least you will find you're very, very successful in your approach at dealing with insects and weeds in the garden. Now, this isn't always evident. It's not like you walk out there and go, oh, I know just exactly when to do this. A lot of these observations are actually accumulated by human error, or human oversight. It's repetition. You see something happening over and over. Now, sometimes maybe you did this by accident. Other times you did research and you figured it out, Sometimes it was just because it happened over and over, that you said, oh, duh. So exposure, education, or just dumb luck can oftentimes get you to bring you to the understanding of just exactly how important timing is. Hey, hang loose all. Aloha. You have a great week.